Then CT findings in acute stroke. So imaging in the acute setting of suspected stroke is an important topic. So when it comes to imaging, the ACR continually updates its guidelines for imaging pathways to the ACR appropriateness criteria. So this article is a general review of the imaging modalities. So non-contrast CT. So rapid evaluation of acute stroke patients will increase as the population ages and acute therapies expand. One significant aspect in evaluation of acute ischemic stroke patients is imaging. So currently in the United States, non-contrast CT remains the, so for patients with suspected stroke, non-contrast CT remains the primary imaging modality for initial evaluation of patients with suspected stroke. So non-contrast CT remains the primary imaging modality, and three main stages are used to describe the CT manifestations of stroke. Three main stages to describe the CT manifestations of stroke. So what are the three main stages? So acute means less than 24 hours, subacute means 24 hours to 5 days, and chronic means weeks. Acute less than 24, subacute 24 hours to 5 days, and chronic means week. So acute stroke, it represents cytotoxic edema, and the changes can be subtle but or significant. So acute stroke represents cytotoxic edema, and the changes can be subtle but or significant. So they are also termed early ischemic changes and were formerly termed hyperacute. So in acute stroke, cytotoxic edema, and these changes can be subtle but are significant. So they are also termed early ischemic changes, and they were formerly called as hyperacute. So acute means less than 24 hours, subacute 24 to 5 days, and chronic weeks. So three main stages. So it is intracellular edema. So it is intracellular edema and causes loss of the normal gray or white matter interface, differentiation, and effacement of the cortical sulci. So there will be a intracellular edema, and this intracellular edema, it causes loss of the normal gray matter white matter interface. So that differentiation, gray white matter interface differentiation is lost, and there is effacement of the cortical sulci. The cortical sulci are effaced. So a thrombus in the proximal middle cerebral artery is sometimes seen in the acute phase and appears as hyperattenuation. So a thrombus in the proximal middle cerebral artery, it is sometimes seen. So in the acute phase, a thrombus in the proximal middle cerebral artery is sometimes seen, and this thrombus, it appears as hyperattenuation. So thrombus in the proximal middle cerebral artery, it is sometimes seen in the acute phase, and this appears as hyperattenuation. A subacute stroke represents vasogenic edema with greater mass effect, hypoattenuation, and well-defined margins. So how does a subacute stroke appear? So it represents vasogenic edema with greater mass effect and hypoattenuation and well-defined margins. So the mass effect and risk of herniation is greatest at this stage. So what is more at this stage? It has got a greater mass effect. So a greater mass effect is seen in subacute stroke. There is a hypoattenuation and well-defined margins. The mass effect and risk of herniation is greatest at this stage. Chronic strokes have loss of brain tissue and or hypoattenuating. So chronic strokes, no, they have loss of brain tissue and these are hypoattenuating. Chronic strokes are hypoattenuating. A thrombus appears as hyperattenuation. Subacute stroke represents vasogenic edema with greater mass effect, hypoattenuation and well-defined margins. And a non-contrast head So here in figure what can we see is left middle cerebral artery infarction. So infarction of the left middle cerebral artery infarction. So axial non-enhanced CT demonstrates so these arrows are showing the hypoattenuating foci throughout the left-sided white matter. So all these are hypoattenuating foci. So these are hypoattenuating foci throughout the left-sided white matter, and there is sulcal effacement in the left MCA territory consistent with infarction. So there is a sulcal effacement in the left MCA territory consistent with the infarction, and a non-contrast CT head may identify the early signs of stroke, but most importantly will exclude intracerebral hemorrhage and lesions that might mimic acute ischemic stroke such as tumor or intracerebral hemorrhage. Non-contrast CT identify early signs of stroke, but most importantly it will exclude, so this will exclude the intracerebral hemorrhage and lesions that might mimic acute ischemic stroke such as tumor or intracerebral hemorrhage. So if we do a non-contrast CT, it identifies early signs of stroke and it will also exclude intrahemorrhage and lesions that might mimic acute stroke such as tumor or intracerebral hemorrhage. So non-contrast CT is also used in the evaluation of acute intracranial hemorrhage as it produces good contrast between the high attenuating bright clot and the low attenuating dark cerebrospinal fluid. So if we do a non-contrast CT, it is used in the evaluation of acute intracranial hemorrhage as it produces good contrast between the high attenuating bright clot and the low attenuating dark cerebrospinal fluid. So this tool's availability and speed make it very useful in the initial evaluation of suspect. So massive subarachnoid and intraventricular hemorrhage. So axial non-enhanced CT demonstrates a large bright or hyper-attenuating dense subarachnoid hemorrhage throughout the perimesencephalic cistern and along the tentorium. So along the tentorium. So these are the double arrows. So this is the hyper-attenuating. It's hyper-attenuation along the tentorium. So double arrows. So the subarachnoid blood in the basilar cisterns has reflexed into the fourth double arrowheads and third arrowhead ventricles. So this one and this one. So there is marked hydrocephalus and arteriovenous malformation was the etiology of this subarachnoid hemorrhage. So then we have the hypertensive intraparenchymal hematoma. So non-contrast CT shows a large right basal ganglionic hematoma containing a fluid level. So this is the fluid level. Hypertensive intraparenchymal hematoma with subfalcine herniation. Non-enhanced axial CT demonstrates a large right basal ganglionic hypertensive bleed with mass effect and midline shift or a subfalcine herniation to the left. Arrow subfalcine herniation to the left. So the frontal horns are part of the lateral ventricles. The frontal horns are part of the lateral ventricles. So the right frontal horn is compressed so severely that it is almost completely obliterated. So dilatation of the left frontal horn is due to obstructive hydrocephalus, a consequence of compression of the third ventricle. And CT angiogram. Newer generation multi-slice CT scanners are becoming more readily available. So it's a minimally invasive study. It requires a time-optimized rapid injection of IV contrast, and thin section helical CT images are obtained in the arterial phase. IV contrast. So software allows thin section axial CT images to be reformatted in any plane, enabling a more complete evaluation of vessels. So three-dimensional reformations of contrast enhanced CT angiogram. It provides clear images of cerebral blood vessels. So three-dimensional reformations of contrast enhanced CT. It provides clear images of cerebral blood vessels. So imaging of the entire intra and extracranial circulation beginning at the aortic arch and continuing through circle of Willis can be frequently performed within 60 seconds. So imaging of the entire intra and extracranial circulation. So this is beginning at the aortic arch and continuing through the circle of Willis. So hypertensive intraparenchymal hematoma with subfalcine herniation. So coronal two-dimensional reconstruction demonstrates transfalcine herniation, arrows to the left, due to large right-sided intraparenchymal hemorrhage. The identification of areas of stenosis or occlusion of vessels allows for rapid and accurate diagnosis and decisions in the clinical arena. So identify areas of stenosis or occlusion of vessels. So CT angiograms that identify occluded blood vessels in the brain assist the neurologist and emergency physician in treatment decisions. So CT angiograms that identify occluded blood vessels in the brain assist the neurologist and emergency physician in treatment decisions. So, when CT angiogram reveals an occlusion of a major cerebral blood vessel within the 3-hour time limit, then the decision to administer intravenous tissue plasminogen activator can be alteplase made with more confidence as the cause of the stroke is more accurately identified. So, if it reveals a major occlusion within 3-hour time limit, then we can use this intravenous tissue plasminogen activator. So, intra-arterial administration of thrombolytics or mechanical clot removal using catheter angiography might be beneficial in patients presenting later than 3 hours if a large and accessible thrombus is identified, and it becomes a decision of the skilled interventional neuroradiologist or neurosurgeon to consider these patients for experimental therapy. The identification of the extracranial carotid arterial disease on the CT angiogram and the visualization of the aortic arch might provide the cause of an ischemic event. So, for example, when a carotid dissection is identified on the CT angiogram, then more aggressive mechanical thrombolytic therapy would not be indicated. And in addition to identifying stenotic and occluded blood vessels, CT can provide images of aneurysms and other vascular abnormalities. So, figure 6, basilar tip artery aneurysm. Okay, and CT demonstrates a focal basilar tip aneurysm. And then anterior communicating artery aneurysm. CT demonstrates an anterior communicating artery, and CT angiography circulophilus isolates the aneurysm. And most comprehensive stroke centers are beginning to use this technique in all acute stroke patients. The most important limitations to contrast enhanced CT or prior allergic reactions and patients with underlying renal insufficiency. Most important limitations to contrast enhanced CT or prior allergic reactions and patients with underlying renal insufficiency.